Well, I wouldn't even speak about organization at all in this context, because it's about individuals capturing the idea. And of course, it's an issue how to go beyond the buzzwords. There are so many buzzwords which are totally misused. So what is important is really to get the thinking into, I would say, those who are doing the actions, irrespective of the size of the organization. Because if I think about, for instance, our research programs, not earlier either we have determined the research method as such. It's just that our research constituency has not applied these kind of approaches. Now we are more explicit, saying that we prefer, we want, the proposal has to have these and these components. So it's about creating a movement of understanding what's all about.
Good. And I mean, you touched on it there, but I might start with you, Chris. That idea of, and I know I've heard, you mentioned Martin Curley there, and I've heard him saying it as well, is that we literally have the resources, we're using the resources for 2 planets at the moment. I mean, how do we change that thinking and we change towards a more sustainable path using innovation, I suppose?
Yeah, well, just in terms of from a resource point of view, if we look at the Earth as providing our resources, I mean, the path we're on is genuinely unsustainable. Again, there are buzzwords, and sustainability is one that's been overly used. But if you think of the environment in its largest sense, I mean, it is the provider of everything that we have. And the resource just isn't there anymore for us to continue with the way that we're continuing. And also, I think, the way we're looking at environmental legislation, environmental protection, if you like, in my view, is in some way upside down. We're looking at it as a compliance issue, where we should be, maybe trying to get as much as we can from the resource, but just complying within the limits of the law. And I think that that's a missed opportunity, quite frankly. I mean, this is the first generation where we actually understand how the world works as a connected entity, as a system. And with that understanding comes opportunity. And we are the first generation to actually understand that. So the model we have in terms of resources, in terms of what's happening on the climate front, for example, that model we have is a legacy model that comes from a time when we didn't actually understand how the system worked as a whole. And that understanding brings us business opportunities. So I think that that is an opportunity where there is great potential for innovation. In fact, we talk about disruptive technologies. What's actually happening is the environment itself is now disruptive. So we've been cruising along with a particular model, and suddenly the environment is changing. Resources are becoming scarce. So the environment around us is becoming disruptive, and that is going to be a driver for innovation. So that opens up opportunity. We just cannot continue to do things the way we've been doing them. And therein lie some opportunities.
I'm just going to move on to you before I come back to you, Mark. Brian, that idea in some of those areas that we're talking about to do with the environment and sustainability, to use the word. We talk about things like aging, green energy, clean tech, all these things where Ireland can possibly excel. What's the role of the university in the context of that innovation?
I think it's multifaceted, and I think when you look at universities, if they're operating effectively, there are centres of knowledge creation, they're centres of problem solving, and to build on some of the really interesting things Bror said, if you look at innovation as starting with an articulation of a problem statement or an opportunity statement or a need statement, I think what universities can do is bring multidisciplinary expertise to bear on those problems. And I think the mashup can happen if you create a convergence culture and a convergence environment within a university situation and associated collaborators. The university is a very effective way, when properly marshalled, of actually coming up with solutions. A couple of years ago, I was preparing a talk on innovation. I went to colleagues in Intel and I said, look, what's your take on it? And they had this circle of innovation, and they said, look, we can do our technology roadmaps, we know where we want to go. But once we can articulate that clearly and share it with a creative organisation like a university, that's when innovation properly happens. So that's where I'd say we can work effectively.
Very good. And just coming to yourself, Mark, then, that, you know, obviously Bror touched on it there, but that idea of, I suppose, collaboration between industry, academia and enterprise, we talk about it a lot, but I mean, how good are we at it in Ireland, and could we do better? And are there, I suppose, are there tensions there within organisations?
Well, we can certainly do better, but actually we're not in a bad position. So it's really important to have all of the actors in the ecosystem aligned. It's really important to have cutting-edge interdisciplinary academic research aligned with cutting-edge opportunities from users and aligned with cutting-edge industrial technology. All of those things are important. And you see that in the recent instruments from Science Foundation Ireland. I mean, there are two of them that I'll highlight. The first is our centres programme. So this year, we started on that, funded 7 centres, 200 million from the government through Science Foundation Ireland, but 100 million from 150 companies collaborating with these cutting-edge researchers. So the absolute sweet spot is where there's a cutting-edge technology that the industry needs to be close to, but cannot justify spending 100% shareholder money on because you're not sure where it's going, and that's by definition innovation. And that's where the leading-edge academics are. And why that's really important for Ireland is that the criteria that an industry will use are these researchers amongst the best in the world, so in the top 10 or 20%. That's important, because if they're not, you're probably not going to be used. Secondly, are you user-friendly? You can be very distinguished, but a complete pain to work with. So, you know, that's an important criteria. And then the third is co-funding. So I think that shows a reflection of the quality of the research base in Ireland, that actually major corporations are signing up. What that means is that the research is relevant, that the researchers are in the top echelons, and that they're user-friendly. So that's one thing I'll highlight. And then the second is, if you're wanting to build an ecosystem, 90% or more of the researchers that Science Foundation Ireland funds through the university system are ultimately employed in the private sector. Most people in university don't know what industrial research is about. How could they? They've just done a PhD and they've done a postdoc. They've only experienced the university. So as part of a career development and building the ecosystem, we have an industry fellowship scheme where we fund anyone from the research base in the universities to spend 1 year in a company anywhere in the world, doesn't have to be in Ireland, working on a collaborative research project. This is about building the ecosystem. It's about breaking down barriers. It's about having people understand that there are technologically interesting innovations. Your last point about tensions, there's a lot of nonsense talked in the system. So we, and we means the 6 small advanced economies, recently asked Elsevier, which is one of the major publishers, to look in their database of publications and across 6 countries, Ireland, Israel, Singapore, Denmark, New Zealand and Finland, to ask the question, what are the characteristics of the most highly cited scientific papers? So an academic criteria of excellence is that you write a publication and people cite it. And they cite it in a positive way because it's a development. And in each and every one of those 6 nations, the most important scientific publications are those that are co-authored with industry, by far. The next most important scientific publications are those that are co-authored with an international collaborator. The next most highly cited are those that are to do with a collaboration within the country, and the least cited, equals the least important, are those that are siloed and come from a single individual or institution. And that is a common pattern across all countries. And that speaks, and that's a database based on millions and millions of articles. It's not just in Ireland, it's across the board. And that speaks to the agenda we have here, where you take people with divergent interests who are creative, intelligent, bright, put them together, and you spark innovation and you spark disruptive technologies. It's really what we're about. Is it easy? No, it's not. Are we on a journey? Yes, we are. Are we in a good place? Yeah, I think we are.